Atta girl.
Welcome to Aging on the Suncoast. I'm your host, Jason Martino. The Legal Services Corporation reports that civil legal needs are not being met due to eligible residents being turned away from the private sector because of a lack of resources. Individual states consistently report the same and posit that 80+% of eligible residents are not having their civil legal needs met. Utilizing funding from the Older Americans Act, the Area Agency on Aging of Pasco and Pinellas counties contracts with 2 legal organizations in order to provide a range of civil legal services to seniors in need and within both counties. To assist our audience understand what the Older Floridian Legal Assistance Program is, we have invited Shannon Fernandez, Program Manager with the Area Agency on Aging, Dick Motley, Managing Attorney with Bay Area Legal Services, and John Herbst, the Director of Elder Law with Gulf Coast Legal Services. Today, our guests will help shed light on a variety of legal issues and where to turn for assistance. Shannon, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Dick, welcome back to the show.
Thank you,
John,
Jason.
welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
This is not your first rodeo. We've been on this show before talking about neat things, haven't we?
Oh, yes.
Excuse me. And what we thought we'd do this month is recover legal assistance for seniors in Pinellas and Pasco County. And I think the best way to start that is talk about the Older Floridian Legal Assistance Program. And Shannon, could you give our audience a pretty good understanding of what that program is and why it's necessary?
Sure. The Older Americans Act is critical for the independence of older adults. And we really use Older Americans Act funding for different programs like homemaking, counseling, transportation, and legal services. And in 2012, there was an attempt to reauthorize the Older Americans Act. And that was simply because the Older Americans Act itself was expired. So they looked into the act and they realized that there was a gap between the area agencies on aging and legal services. And there was actually talk about breaking the connection between the area agencies and the legal providers in the community. And in an effort to bridge the gap, the Department of Elder Affairs, they started this initiative called the OFLAP, or the Older Floridians Legal Assistance Program. And it actually works with a variety of key stakeholders in the community, the legal services providers, the Department of Elder Affairs, the court systems, the law schools, the Florida Bar, and it's a great way to bring together meaningful information for capturing legal needs of seniors in the community.
Sounds like a pretty cool bridge. So as an employee of the Area Agency on Aging, Pasco and Pinellas County, how does that company administer the Older Floridian Legal Assistance Program?
Well, we do have 2 grants from the Older Americans Act, and one of them is a 3B funder that actually provides legal services to those who are 60 and older. Mm-hmm. And we do also have a 3EG grant, which is specifically for grandparents or other relatives raising grandchildren. But I know we'll talk a little bit more about that later on.
Right. So legal needs are wide and they vary greatly. I think we understand from previous shows too that we're really talking about civil legal needs here today. What kind of areas does OFLAP concentrate on when it wants to serve the community?
Well, that's a great question. There are targeting categories that we tend to look at, and we look at those specifically because we want to meet those who are the greatest economic and the greatest social need. And we also look at priority issue areas. And priority issue areas were comprised from the Department of Elder Affairs and working with the AAAs along with the legal providers. And there are specific type of life problems that are most critical to target groups in meeting basic needs. So some of these broad priority issue areas are housing, they could be income related, they can be abuse and neglect related, health care, things like that. And they just help us triage to see what legal needs are in the community and how we can better serve those seniors.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Jen. Let's talk with John a little bit. You've been a longtime partner with the Area Agency on Aging, meeting legal needs in Pinellas County, and Dick, obviously, you've been helping people meet their legal needs in Pasco County as well. And maybe some of our audience doesn't fully understand what the 3B program is that you offer through your agency, Gulf Coast Legal Services. Can you give us a good understanding of what that program is? Sounds like the eligibility of the program is you have to be 60.
You have to be over 60. Right. You have to basically
have a social need, we concentrate on greatest economic needs, greatest social needs. We look at a variety of cases. We look at income guidelines. Is your income good? Is the housing good? Holistic, along those lines.
Yeah, and you cover all the county, right?
Yes.
Tell us about the offices that you have.
We have 2 offices. We have an office in St. Pete and we have an office in Clearwater.
Okay.
And we also do outreaches at various community areas throughout the county at this point.
Nice. And Dick, you have a very similar program that John has.
It's the same eligibility issues. You're over 60 and a senior with a legal problem. We tried to structure the intake process so that folks can easily access the program. We have offices in Newport Richey and in Dade City, which are pretty much located with the population centers in the county. And then we do most of the initial intake by telephone to make an easy entry access. And I think you'll be posting those numbers later for people to be able to write down and call if they have such a problem.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We're going to run some graphics that'll have Gulf Coast Legal Services telephone number and the website on there so people will know how to connect with those folks. And I think you made a pretty good point as well, Dick, is that you guys have strategically put offices in locations with higher prevalence of senior to make people with maybe less mobility kind of needs to to be able to get to your office to serve. And that sounds the same way for St. Petersburg and your Clearwater office over there, is that in Pinellas County, that's where our highest population centers are of seniors in that area. And I know that your organizations not only just serve seniors, you're serving a whole diverse group of different people, bringing different legal matters to the table.
And we also structure outreach to senior centers and dining sites when necessary to do intake for folks.
Yeah. So not everybody gets all the information that it can from the TV. We have to kind of go out there and meet them, don't we?
Yes.
Yeah. So we covered lightly that if somebody had assumed that they had a legal issue, that they can contact your organization and do it. But what are the other mechanisms that that a person can get a referral to one of either Bayer Legal Services or Gulf Coast Legal Services?
Well, there's several different ways. They can either call our helpline, which is a local for Pinellas and Pasco, and they will then be triaged to the appropriate legal provider in that case. They can also call the Florida Bar Senior Legal Helpline, and they will also be triaged then to the appropriate local legal provider in that case as well. Or they can just call the legal providers directly at their office, and like Dick had mentioned, they do intake over the phone as the first point of contact. Typically an attorney then talks with them to determine the legal severity of the case, and either legal advice is given right at that moment, or they're seen typically within a week to further investigate what the issue is.
Okay. John, if you don't mind, walk us through a scenario. If and use me for an example, excuse me. If I were a senior and I felt that I had a legal issue, I had the capacity to make an independent call to your agency, what should I expect when I make that call?
Well, when you first call in there, you'll be talking to the receptionist who will gauge whether you're appropriate for our services, whether you should be calling us or maybe Bayer Legal Services or another provider like Community Law Program. At that point, if it's appropriate for our services, you will then be screened by one of my paralegals and usually set for an appointment. Or sometimes they'll directly connect me to me if it's an easy answer question over the phone. I get straight to it. I can answer it right then. But most times you get set for an appointment, and again, you get set within 2 weeks. If not less, and if it's an emergency, you'll get set the next day, if possible.
Oh, okay. Dick, any differences in expectations?
It's pretty much the same, I would say. You would call in and you would speak to a screener initially, and they would take information from you about your living situation and the people you live with, and they'll take some information on the legal issue itself, and if it's a case where there's like an opposing party, they have to take information as to the opposing party. Because in a legal situation, provide advice to people, you have to do what's called a conflict check to make sure that you're not providing representation to both sides. So you can expect that to occur. They'll take some information and then they have to do those conflict checks, and it's likely you would be called back at that point to set an appointment for you. Like I say, in Pasco, generally be initially on a telephone, and as Shannon pointed out, usually that first appointment can be had within a week, so it's fairly rapid.
Yeah.
In emergency situations, you can see people quicker than that if the necessity arises to do so.
So you gentlemen told me that these services are free. I have to imagine that you have a wait list for the service because everybody can't have all their legal needs met at one time. Is that true?
No, there's no wait list.
Really?
No, as soon as we can get you in, we get you in. There's no wait list. Just yesterday, I had a phone call. Actually, I had 2 phone calls. The situations are deemed somewhat of emergencies. We pulled them in right then there within the hour. Can you come on down? Please come on down. And we serviced them at that point.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Dick, same thing for you in Pasco County?
Yes, correct. I believe, again, probably within a week you can be seen, which is a fairly rapid response, I think, in the situations, most situations.
Nice. So, in my experience, sometimes when somebody has a legal need or they assume that their legal name is great, they always think that they're going to be represented in court, and sometimes the highest of all courts because their case is that important to them. I don't think that's necessarily the case all the time. So tell us different types of ways that you can serve people. I know that you have done some representation, but what other ways do you serve people?
Well, lots of times you can provide people advice regarding the situation, and that is adequate to at least for them to be able to understand the situation they're confronted with. There are a number of legal issues that's the case.
Right.
So advice may be all that a person needs regarding the situation. A number of times what we get involved in document preparation. We'll talk later about kind of cases we do, but you may be doing a power of attorney or something like that. We'd be preparing documents for individuals. And sometimes the case may involve a situation where the senior is in a situation where they can provide representation of themselves if they're provided some assistance. It's called pro se advice, and you might provide court documents to them to be able to file on their own or direction, maybe even on an ongoing basis as what to be doing in a court situation. They find themselves in that situation. And again, we do provide representation, in-court representation for folks who do have the need for that to occur.
Or it warrants it, yeah. John, anything different in Pinellas County?
It's the same with us. You have everything from advice through full representation. We do help prepare documents if they're able to do some of the stuff themselves. We will help them with small claims cases. We will actually represent them in small claims cases at some point sometimes. We do the documents for all the advanced directives. Again, just as you're saying, depending on the needs of the senior, we can do a variety of different things. And it's not always full representation, but we will do as much as possible to make sure that they're satisfied, including referrals to outside agencies and making sure that they get served by those agencies.
You made a great point in there, too. You're not doing it all by yourself. Sometimes you'll get people that maybe walk or call in off the street, and obviously you can't meet that person's needs holistically, so we have such a good relationship. We probably have reciprocal referrals going on all the time, or to other social service agencies there in Pinellas County or Pasco County that could be able to meet that person's needs. And humans are complex. We have different types of needs, don't we? We talked about that we do civil legal type of services. Are there what are the legal services that you cannot provide service for?
Well, it's civil. The opposite of that is criminal. We don't
right.
do criminal cases. If you're indigent and need a criminal attorney, that's the public defender's office would be appointed to represent you. So there's no real need for that service to be provided. We don't really do traffic cases, and there are cases where you can get private attorneys to represent you without having to do a fee up front. We don't do those kind of cases because there's no need for us to duplicate services. Those would generally be your slip and falls, your auto accidents, those kind of cases. We don't get involved in that area because there's just no need to provide services in that area.
Yeah.
So we try to concentrate on those areas that Shannon talked about earlier that have been identified as priority needs for the seniors, and those are the ones we really try to concentrate on.
And there's a humongous amount of need out there just for civil legal needs, so you would have a lot on your hands if you were to take everything in. Okay. Gentlemen, we're going to take a short break. Hopefully you guys will stick back with me too. Please stay with us while we take a short break. As usual, don't forget to have a pen or pencil ready. We'll be running contact information for both legal organizations during the break and at the end of our show.
Sarah is 64 and loves to garden, but recently her health insurance ran out, leaving her worried about more than just weeds. With pre-existing health conditions, Sarah's chances of finding good coverage were low. So she called the Elder Helpline and spoke with a SHINE volunteer counselor. The Department of Elder Affairs SHINE program provides free, unbiased counseling on health insurance for those on Medicare. More information is available about Shine or how you can volunteer at 1-800-963-5337.
Welcome back to Aging on the Suncoast. During the first half of the show, Shannon Fernandez, Dick Motley, and John Herbst helped us understand what the Older Floridian Legal Assistance Program is. Additionally, they gave us an understanding of the agencies invested in this initiative. Let's continue this important discussion and delve into the types of issues that affect our senior community, as well as grandparents and other relative caregivers of children. John, welcome back to the second segment of our show today.
Thank you, Jason.
Dick, you as well. And Shannon, welcome back to our show today.
Thanks.
So on the first half of the show, we talked about the Older Floridian Legal Assistance Program. We talked about what it was, why we think it's necessary in our part of the state, and we talked specifically about the Older Americans Act Title IIIB program, and we talked about that program primarily is set up to help people be served for their civil legal needs, and we also covered some different things that you could not cover in there too. So let's go back to that a little bit when it comes to the 3B program. And I'm curious because I know that the landscape of legal issues changes from time to time. Currently, what types of legal issues that are you seeing on a more frequent basis? Dick, you want to start?
Well, the majority of issues that we see generally revolve around, for the seniors, revolve around income issues. And more often than not, it's lack of income issues, collection cases, folks who can't really have enough money to pay all the bills that they have collected over the time. And it's appropriate to call us on those kind of cases and to call early, because I think you can give people advice on how to structure their financial situation to avoid legal issues and avoid problems. So that's important.
Yeah.
And there's also always a number of housing issues. That's always a big issue among the seniors and folks in general. And again, some of that goes back to income issues of not having enough money to pay either the mortgage and ending up in a foreclosure situation, or trouble paying taxes. They see that a lot with seniors because as taxes go up, it becomes more difficult. Or insurance in Pasco has been a big issue too, affording insurance with the high insurance rates. And again, it's good to call early to try to get some help in those areas, because we may be able to refer folks to different programs that would assist in that. And also in Pasco County, we're seeing a lot of housing quality issues for the seniors, that the landlords won't fix the premises that a person's renting. It's important to call attorneys to call us early on those too, because there's certain ways you can notice the landlord to make repairs and do it correctly, but if you do it wrong, you can end up not having any kind of a defense to an eviction action. So those are really common issues that is a theme of the folks who call us.
Okay. And I think we're going to go a little bit more in detail a little bit later on the show, but it also sounds like what Dick brought up, the income and the housing, what he's seen to be the most of us, fits into the priority issue areas that I heard you say a little bit earlier.
Completely, yes. And you'll see that those issues are so broad that a lot of different cases can fit into those specific issues, like income, like he's saying, where it encompasses debt and it encompasses collections and not being able to have enough income and things like that.
Nice. John, what are you seeing in Pinellas County? Similar stuff that Dick's seeing, or anything different in there on the broad level?
Same stuff, but holistically, it all comes down to not having enough money. It comes down to not being able to pay your rent. Comes down to, or your mortgage, comes down to having credit card issues, either from medical bills or from a lifestyle that you were living prior to retiring, or passing of a spouse. And all these things at some point will come to a head. So if you get in early, we can actually talk to you about it and figure out how to plan for when that day comes. Okay. So like I said, you're saying the housing issues, the credit issues, the income issues, and then you got just the last days of your lives kind of issues, the advanced directives. That's kind of important too. We see a lot of that also.
Yeah.
Planning for your living will, your DPOA, your durable power of attorney, and your healthcare surrogate stuff.
Yeah, so we'll get into some intricates a little bit later, because I think that you all can probably paint a pretty good picture for others to understand the different types of things that you're seeing, and maybe they can relate to that. Let's shift gears a little bit, because when I was talking with Shannon a little bit earlier on how the Area Agency on Aging administers the Older Floridian Legal Assistance Program, she mentioned Older Americans Act Title IIIB, and that's what we just got done talking about. But then she also mentioned Older Americans Act Title IIIEG, and I know that we use a lot of jargon in our term, but really what that program, that falls under the National Family Caregiver Support Program, and that serves grandparents raising grandchildren and relative caregivers, and you all are the beneficiary of a contract with the Area Agency on Aging to do that too. Unique population. Tell us a little bit about your services towards that population.
Well, it's an interesting grant in that usually we talked about on the 3B grant, you have to be 60 or older to
Right.
qualify. Under the 3E Caregiver Act grant, you can be 55. And if you're 55 or older, you qualify for services under the grant for assistance. If you're raising or concerned about the custody or caregiving of a minor, generally it'll be a relative minor, so it'd be a person under 18. And again, if you qualify and get your appointment, we would review the situation and we would work with you on determining what would be the appropriate legal mechanism in the situation to help you out. Maybe a power of attorney, there's different kinds of temporary custody cases, there's adoption, so there's a variety of legal remedies that might be available to assist these types of individuals.
Yeah. John, it sounds like the eligibility for the Title III EG program, the grandparents raising grandchildren, is not that much different than the 3B program, with the exception of the age difference, the 5-year increment of what it is. When you're serving these individuals in Pinellas County, do you find that you could do it by yourself, or are you doing it with a host of different types of agencies to holistically serve that family's needs?
We're doing with a host of all kinds of different agencies. And something else we want to add into that, also if the person is 55 and the other individual relative is a disabled, over 18 and disabled, we also serve that individual also. But yes, it's a holistic kind of approach to dealing with grandparents, because the issues are vast and wide. And the answers can be vast and wide. It could be concurrent, it could be temporary custody, it could be just as simple as a power of attorney. And we also rely on other agencies and other groups to help and provide, references and feedback and sometimes, money to help with the situations.
Right. There's on a previous show we had Larry Cooper from the children's home that operates out of Hillsborough but serves Pinellas and Pasco County on there, and I know that they're a large organization and they're a leader throughout the Tampa Bay region in serving these families. They have a host of different things that they can help out with. And one of the things that we covered very lightly during that time was the ever-changing world of the laws that surround these types of families. What types of things, what are the laws doing to either prevent easy care for that child or enable easier care and choice making for these children?
Well, there's a fairly new grandparent visitation statute, which makes contact possible in certain situations. Still pretty restrictive on when the court can order grandparent visitation. But it does exist now, so if you're interested in that kind of situation, then you probably should give us a call and get an appointment to discuss the possibility of that occurring. And there was the temporary custody statute that allows for a relative to get custody in a sort of simplified guardianship fashion, has been expanded to allow what's called concurrent custody, which allows both the parents and the senior caregiver to basically both maintain custody rights over the minor that's involved in the situation.
Such a unique population. We're really happy that you all can serve them. Anything you know about the laws that are changing that you want to add to what they
like
say?
I said, I think the concurrent custody change has been the biggest change and most helpful. Prior to that, it was definitely always temporary custody, and so you would always have the fight between the parents and the grandparents, over who gets to raise, of course, the biological kid of the parent, and you had both groups fighting. Both concurrent custody, you can actually get the parents and the grandparents to come together and actually work on this idea.
Wise idea.
And with temporary custody, you always had the concept that, okay, the grandparents now have control, but the daughter or the son can come back and take that kid back, and by a change of circumstance. So it was originally the child was placed on temporary custody on a very combative situation, and so it was always this back and forth. With the concurrent, you can actually make it more of a group kind of, let's all get together for the best interest of the child.
Yeah, what an emotional roller coaster for some of these families to go through. Let's go back full circle to what we did before, because I wanted to offer our audience some examples of the types of cases that you take that fall under the different priority issue areas, just because there may be some that are relative to them. Part of our administration of this program is to help people understand what a civil legal issue is, and maybe this is a good modality for us to do that too. So John, you and I were talking just the other day about some of the different types of cases you take under income, and one of the things that you wanted me to highlight in here was debt, that you're seeing a lot of debt types of issues. Do you want to give an example of a different type of debt case that you've dealt with?
Yeah, a debt case could be everything from, you're behind on your mortgage, and you need to be modified. Debt case could also be just a simple, I haven't paid my credit cards and I'm not paying them, and now I'm being sued. A debt case could be a car that got repoed, and now there's a deficiency judgment, and now they're coming after them for that deficiency. You'd be amazed how many times they've talked seniors into, oh, you can't afford the car, just clean it up and bring it down to us and we'll take it, and don't worry about it. Well, that's not how it happens. Yeah. So we've had seniors wax up the car, take it down to the car lot, and next thing you know, they got this little statement saying it's a deficiency.
Yeah. And Dick, you and I were talking not too long ago as well that you were seeing a lot of housing issues in Pasco County. Any case that is a hallmark case that you think is common in the area, or just a peculiar one that you've dealt with?
Well, I think in general, though, again, I think housing quality issues are a serious problem. Mm-hmm. And so we've been working with different housing inspection units in the county and those kind of things to try to basically focus on getting improvements in housing conditions. And that's been somewhat successful, I think, to be able to help the seniors in that regard.
Nice.
And on the debt issue, when we talk about it, we talk about helping to be able to structure folks to be able to spend the money they have in the way they should. We can also work on trying to get folks more money, if that's a necessity, involved in Social Security, disability claims, basic public benefits issues. We can review those with folks too to see if there's a way to help increase income into the household.
Nice. I'm glad that people know that there are resources for them out there. We have a little bit of time left, and I wanted you to talk about your new initiative that you have going on throughout Pinellas County. You want to take a couple seconds?
Yes, just like the old flap, the idea was that the people are not being served. So from the American Bar Association all the way down to the Florida Bar, you have this idea that they want to increase services, okay, and they want to, and since there's no money to be thrown at, they want to increase services as efficiently as possible. Okay, so we start this system called SOS, Solutions on Site, where we were actually going on to different locations, sending out interns with iPads, and they are seeing seniors right there on these community centers, low-income community centers, and I am taking cases through the iPad and giving services right there. We've increasing our intake and inequality overall. That's
great, John. That sounds like you're really able to access the community and serve them where these folks are, instead of always having to come to the thing. I appreciate, Dick, you coming to our show today, and John, you coming to our show. Like I said, it's not your first rodeo. You've been back. And Shannon, thanks as always for coming to our show. We hope you enjoyed this month's broadcast. We also hope this episode was helpful to understand what legal issues seniors face, and just as importantly, where to seek help. We'll see you next month, and until then, have a happy and healthy September.